Mounting and installing of the LV Statcom. This video will show you how to mount and install a low voltage Statcom. Equipment required. Statcoms come with the following: a hanging bracket, a manufacturer's test certificate, boots for the active and neutral connections, and 2 weatherproof network cables. The user manual is available on the LV Statcom SharePoint site. You will also need a pole mounting frame. Use a single unit pole mounting frame for 1 to 2 Statcoms and a multi-unit frame for 3 to 6 units. Mounting the Statcoms. To save time on site, it's best to mount the units on the frame in the depot. Take care when handling these units as each Statcom weighs approximately 40 kilograms. Use a single unit pole mounting frame for 1 to 2 Statcoms. Make sure it is the right way up and the holes align. The hanging bracket will only fit to the top crossarm of the frame. Secure it to the frame with the nuts and bolts provided. Then slot the unit onto the hanging bracket. Once it is properly seated, secure it to the bottom of the frame. Then earth the Statcom to the frame using copper earth tails. Once that's done, the units are ready to be transported to site. Follow the same process to mount 3 to 6 units, this time using the multi-unit frame. A maximum of 4 units can be installed at the depot. Any additional units must be installed on site to prevent damage during transport. Next, secure the cabling to the frame. This will save you time when you get on site. Make sure all cables are neatly tucked away to avoid any damage during transport to site. Installing the Statcoms. Before installing these units, you must review and understand the relevant SWMs, construction drawings, and other reference documents. A step-by-step checklist to assist with the installation can be found on the process zone. There will be a lot of cabling and other hardware to be installed, so think about how you will position the assets, including your communications box and antenna. You'll need to consider the statutory heights and measurements on your construction drawings, the length of the Ethernet cables supplied, other assets on the pole such as streetlights, and your access to the site. To minimise the time the lifter borer is required at the job site, it is recommended that you drill holes for the pole mounting frame first, then lift and hang the Statcoms into place, and finally run the cabling. Installing a single unit frame. Statcoms can be lifted using a lifter borer, but other methods can be used depending on what plant you have available at your depot. For example, a single unit can also be installed using an EWP and lifting chip. Regardless of what method is used, attach adequately rated D-shackles to the lifting bracket on the Statcom unit, sling into position and attach to the pole with coach screws or king bolts. Installing a multi-unit frame. There are a number of ways to lift a multi-unit frame. You can use a choked single sling secured off-center on the frame, or if the frame has lifting eyelets, use those. Once upright, make sure the Statcom units are supported properly by the hanging bracket onto the frame. If it's not seated properly, loosen and retighten the bottom bolt. Due to the weight distribution of the units on the frame, it will be leaning forward slightly from the sling. Use a guide rope to stabilise the movement into place. Installing the communications box. The communications box comes with 2 mounting brackets, a support and an antenna. Mount the box to the pole using the brackets provided. Prep the antenna for installation using the clamps or zip ties provided. When mounting, position it where it doesn't interfere with other assets and, if possible, in line of sight with a communications tower. It should also be kept clear from overhead lines. This concludes the mounting and installation of the LV Statcom. More information, including links to other videos in this series, is available on this page and on the LV Statcom SharePoint site.